What do the Cowboys need to draft in order to improve this team? Everything. This is KD Drummond of bloggingtheboys.com, and we're here to break down the top offseason needs for your Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you notice, I originally said, what do they need to draft? Because obviously we're already into free agency and the Cowboys haven't made much of an impact on the scene. Obviously, they did re-sign Anthony Spencer, and that's probably going to be their biggest free agent pickup in the offseason. A lot of people don't want to look at it that way, but putting the franchise tag on him basically ate up $11 million worth of cap space, and it's what the Cowboys chose to do this year. Now, I think with all that said, it's about time that we start focusing more on the draft instead of thinking about who we can get, because obviously if we do get anybody, they're probably not going to be for sure starters, and they're probably just going to be added depth, and we'll still need to be looking at certain positions in order to improve. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the offensive needs, and then in the following episode, we'll tackle the defense. Now, first things first, I'd probably say that wide receiver is a pretty safe position for the Cowboys right now. The extension, or the restructuring, I should say, of Miles Austin's contract, pushing some of the cap hit into future years, pretty much solidifies his place as a number 2 receiver for the Cowboys for at least the next couple seasons. Dez Bryant is the obvious number 1. Now, what do they have behind them? They have Dwayne Harris, they have Cole Beasley, both of them got some time in the 2012 season, and they also have basically a redshirt rookie in Danny Cole, a 5th-round draft pick last year who wasn't able to get on the field because of various injuries. So with that stockpile, I could see Dallas making a move for a later round wide receiver developmental guy, but overall I'd say that they're pretty secure at that position. Another position that I feel they're pretty secure at is tight end. A lot of people say that, yeah, we did miss Martellus Bennett's blocking, obviously not his pass catching skills, but we did miss his blocking, and Dallas should go out and target a blocking tight end. You're not going to waste a draft pick on a 3rd tight end. It's just not really good business to do that. Jason Witten is here. He's still producing even though his yards per catch came down this season. James Hanna has a lot of potential as his backup, and he's going to be entrenched as the number 2 tight end. So I'm really not looking for the Cowboys to do anything on the tight end market either. Now, one place that I think that they could use some help, and I think that owner Jerry Jones actually agrees with me, is the guard position. He recently said that he thought that center Phil Costa could be a very capable center if he had an elite level guard playing next to him, which means 2 things. One, he's banking on Phil Costa still being an asset for this team, and he also doesn't think he has the answer currently at the guard position amongst the starters. That means Mackenzie Bernardow and Nate Livings. So for me, I'd easily say, the Dallas would be looking to add some talent to their young guys, David Arkin and Ron Leary, neither of who have really made an impact, and I don't think would be progress stoppers or keep the Cowboys from entertaining any kind of pick for those guys, for guys in the draft. My top targets are obviously going to be Chance Warmack of Alabama, and then my number 1 guy, who I actually have rated 5th on my big board, Jonathan Cooper, the guard out of North Carolina. Now, Cooper is a very athletic player, very nimble feet. He's very quick. He gets to the second level very well. And then he went and bulked up and added 15 pounds of muscle from the end of the season to the combine, where he just pretty much shined in everything that you could have asked him to do. So for me, that's my number 1 pick. If Dallas does go in a different direction in the 1st round, away from Warmack or Cooper, they could easily pick up somebody like Larry Warford, the guard from Kentucky, in the 2nd round. There's also guys like Justin Pugh from Syracuse. He's available in the 3rd round, something of that sort. But Dallas definitely needs to address the interior of the line somewhere in this draft, and they have to do it with a blue chip, well, not necessarily a blue chip prospect as my preference would be, but somebody that at least has the capability to come in and start on day 1. Now, they also have a big need on the line at right tackle. Whether or not Dallas chooses to bite the bullet on Doug Free's contract this year or next year, he's obviously not going to be the answer. He struggled for 2 seasons in a row, and it's about time to move on from him. I don't have the confidence in Jeremy Parnell as being anything more than a backup swing tackle, a credible one, but I don't think he's starting material. Now, if Dallas is going to look early, they could see somebody like maybe Lane Johnson or out of Oklahoma, or DJ Fluker out of Alabama. Those are both players that could play on the right. I think 1st round pick is a little bit too high to go for a right tackle, but if all of the rest of the prospects are off the board and Fluker is there, then that might be the direction to go to. Something that they could consider is more so in the second, third, fourth round target range would be a player like Brennan Williams from North Carolina. He's actually a right tackle of the future. There's also Kyle Long from Oregon, Dallas Thomas from Tennessee. Those are names that you might want to become familiar with. And then there's also Chris Falk, who was out of the LSU. And Chris Falk was actually one of the top-rated tackles in the game before he tore his ACL. He was going to be in competition for the #1 tackle off the board. He's a big dude. He's not really a cut, svelte type of left tackle, so I could easily see him moving over to the right side. He weighs about 335. He's a big behemoth type of guy, but he has very good feet. ACL injuries aren't the end of the world anymore in the NFL period, but especially not for tackles. So you can easily see Chris Falk coming in and being a day one starter as long as he's recovered from that ACL injury. So be on the lookout for him. Do some reading up on him if you want to get some research down on your tackle game. Now, I also wouldn't rule out the Cowboys actually drafting a center in the draft, even though, Jerry Jones likes Phil Costa. But I'm not in love with the #1 center in the draft like a lot of people are, and that's Barrett Jones out of Alabama. I actually like a couple guys a little bit better. Travis Frederick out of Wisconsin, I like him better. Brian Schwenke out of California. Those are really my top 2 centers. They should be able to be had in the 3rd round or maybe even the 4th round. So this could be done after they've tackled a couple other needs, and then they would turn around and get another surefire starter, which is actually a pretty good draft strategy if you're asking me. Now, depending on how this whole draft falls, there is a possibility that Dallas could attain their backup of the future at the quarterback position behind Tony Romo. We still don't know yet whether or not Romo's going to be extended, but even if he isn't, there's still a possibility he would remain in Dallas beyond his contract, as the team has the option of franchising him for up to 2 years after his deal plays out. So my whole thing is, if you're spending so much money and you're up against the cap, the easiest thing to do is to replace Kyle Orton as your backup quarterback with a young guy that doesn't cost as much. Because Orton is going to cost like $3.5 million against the cap this year. I think it's up to $5 million in 2014. And if Dallas had a capable backup quarterback, they could save that money and free up the space to spend on another position. Now, you're not going to get a guy like Geno Smith or Matt Barkley. Those guys are probably going in the 1st and 2nd round. Ryan Nassib out of Syracuse, some people have him as a #1 quarterback. He's probably going to be going as well. But after that, you have a lot of guys that could easily become that backup of the future and maybe even, knock on wood, become like a Tom Brady's 5th or 6th round draft pick that turns into a viable starter in the NFL. You have Mike Glennon from North Carolina State, Tyler Wilson from Arkansas, Tyler Bray from Tennessee. Oklahoma has a guy in Landry Jones who's a bit of a statue in the pocket, but, when he's on, even though when he's bad, he's pretty bad. Florida State's E.J. Manuel, Matt Scott out of Arizona, Zach Dysert out of Miami of Ohio. These are all names that I wouldn't be shocked to hear Dallas put in a bid for come draft time. These are all guys that you can easily have between the 3rd and the 6th round. So if they're feeling like they could get that backup of the future and potentially a starter, trade bait, whatever you want to call them, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. Now, the final position that we're going to look at right now for the offense is going to be running back. Now, there's a misconception in my mind that Dallas should stay away from running backs with injury histories because of, we have Felix Jones and he was an injured running back. DeMarco Murray, who's our #1 guy, who I think has a chance to be an elite running back behind a quality offensive line if we could ever build one. DeMarco Murray is that type of guy, but he's going to need a compliment regardless. And I don't think that Dallas should shy away from the injury guys simply because, you don't want to mix 2 injured players together. Do you know how many games over the last 2 seasons that Dallas hasn't had either Murray or Felix Jones in the lineup? 0. Zilch. Zip. Nada. Not one. They have never entered a game where they didn't have one or the other of those 2 running backs. So really, what's the concern? Most likely they're not going to have serious injuries at the same time because that just, rarely happens. In the rare occasion that it does, you're down to your 3rd string guy and then you have your guys like Lance Dunbar, Phillip Tanner, see what they can do. But in that vein, I would not shy away from picking a player like Marcus Lattimore, who was, by all accounts, going to be a 1st-round pick before he blew out his ACL for a 2nd time this past year. And, from all the reports that we're hearing, he is well ahead of schedule. He's doing like an Adrian Peterson type of recovery. Things have really changed in the ACL game when it comes to these running backs, and they're coming back faster and quicker than ever. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams have a third-round grade on Marcus Lattimore. Now, that might be too early for Dallas to draft injury-prone running back considering their situation, but one guy that I would especially like to pay attention to is Knile Davis out of Arkansas. Now, a couple years back, Knile Davis was the guy mentioned in the same breath as Marcus Lattimore and Eddie Lacy and all those guys as far as being a potential #1 running back and worthy of a first-round grade. He broke his ankle. He missed the entire 2011 season, came back. He still wasn't right in 2012. Arkansas went through a big upheaval with the Bobby Petrino scandal, and their offense just wasn't the same. So a lot of their players with pedigree suffered in this past season. Now, Knile does have a fumbling problem, but this dude absolutely killed the scouting combine. And I don't mean kill like, accidental shooting type of kill. I'm talking about, Walking Dead, knife to the head of a zombie type of kill. This was death of all death that he did. He's 227 pounds and ran a 4.3740. That's a speed score, which is used to calculate basically speed per your weight. He had a speed score of 124.5, which is beyond elite. Anything above 110 is really, really good. Anything above 120 is like cream of the crop type of value that you're getting speed for your size. He's a tackle breaker. He's elusive in the hole. He really has all of the skills beyond just being fast for his size. He was very good in the rest of the athletic drills of the combine. So I would love to see Dallas spend a 5th-round pick on Knile Davis, focus on some other positions in the draft, and then get your running back in the 5th round, and you're looking golden to me. Now, if they choose to go a different direction, there's guys like Jonathan Franklin out of UCLA. Even a late-round pick is Ray Graham out of Pittsburgh. He has a lot of LaShawn McCoy in him. He doesn't have the speed of McCoy, but he definitely has the danceability of the guy. There's some other players out there that you could also consider. There's Wisconsin's Monty Ball. Sorry, I had a brain freeze for a second, but Monty Ball, a lot of people don't like the workload that he had, but he actually had less of a workload in college than Ray Rice did at Rutgers, so you could easily see how he could translate into the NFL. He doesn't have the pure speed of a breakaway runner, but do you really need that in the NFL, or do you really need somebody that's going to get you more than 4.5 yards of carry? Okay, so that's going to wrap up our offensive preview for the NFL draft for the Cowboys' needs. Don't forget, we'll be right back to look at the defensive side of the ball and all of those things that we need there. In the meantime, you can make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, SBN Blogging the Boys. Don't forget about SBN NFL as well as SB Nation. KD Drummond, salute.